Consider This with Carol Schrader is made possible with support from Bass & Associates, First Data Resources, and by Nebraskans for Public Television. Consider This with Carol Schrader, a news and information program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. From the Fireside Lounge in the Milo Bale Student Center, here is your host, Carol Schrader.
Hello and welcome back to UNO. One of the hottest topics about 60 miles away from here. Well, actually statewide, but the epicenter is in Lincoln, Nebraska right now, and it's the subject of teacher salaries, how to raise them, and should the state help bring those salaries up using your tax money, but at least taking it from the state coffers. My guests today are very interested in having something done quickly. Jim Grease is the Nebraska State Education Association Executive Director. He moved his schedule around, his traveling schedule, to be with us today, and I appreciate that. Also with us, a real-life teacher, not that these other people haven't taught, but she's in the trenches right now in second grade at Druid Hill, is Andrea Duren. We appreciate you taking the time to come here and tell your students thanks for giving you up for, you know, just a wee bit of time.
Yes.
And also with us today is Dr. John Langen. He is chair of the Teacher Education Department here at the University of Nebraska at Omaha, and wears another hat, of course, as the president of the Omaha School Board. This, you know, I did a search on the internet, and this is popping up in some fashion in every state of the union, even those that rank higher in teacher pay than the 43rd on average that we do here. You know, we brag about our 5th place in student achievement. Didn't we know we were getting into a kettle of fish when we passed the new retirement plan?
Well, it's not the retirement bill that is causing this problem. Essentially what you have is a big bubble of people in the pipeline that began their teaching careers about the same time that I did back in 1963.
That long?
That long ago. And so the net result is you've got these people who have been serving as teachers in Nebraska and across the country who are with 30 to 35 years of service. The early retirement program has helped school districts in terms of their finances, but it's not the cause of the teacher shortage. It's just so many people in that age category who began their teaching career in the early and middle 60s.
I didn't mean to infer that it was the cause. Maybe it's exacerbating a problem because you're creating a demand, suddenly a higher demand. We always have a high demand for teachers, good teachers, and that's when a little more of the pressure, maybe the money's deserved anyway, but a little more of the pressure bubbles up, doesn't it, John?
Now, let me say this, Carol. When we talked to Senator Bulkey and the other senators on the Education Committee, I pointed out two things about that attempt to do a connect between the retirement plan exacerbating the situation and teacher salaries. And I would say two things. One, teachers, in terms of sacrificing on the front end, really negotiated a position to get some benefits on the back end. And I would use the analogy and suggest it's going to be short-sighted to say that absent an early retirement, you're going to have more teachers, because absent an early retirement, that's a major benefit package, just as health insurance and everything else. You take that away, and I suggest to you, you're going to have a greater exodus from the teaching ranks than you are by having it in place. So it's really a fallacious argument to say, you know, there's a connect between the two. In fact, I fear that if that's tampered with, you're going to see a mass exodus. So. Well,
certainly the burnout is a factor. Teaching is an extremely intense profession, and I wanted to kind of get that one out of the way. You looking forward to retirement, Andrew? Oh, you seem very happy to be with your second graders now, but it is an extremely. You're working in a school where they've had the foresight to kind of lower the class size because these particular kids are a little more vulnerable. All kids are vulnerable, but they're more at risk. But it's still a very intense situation.
We're working every day just to get to the core of what we need to do, and there are so many factors that go into teaching. Just aside from, you know, the 15 students that I have in my room, you know, there are the lesson plans to prepare, there are the papers to grade, there are all those things. So it is a stressful job, and it doesn't end at 4 o'clock, unfortunately. Sometimes it doesn't end until 10 o'clock with the parent phone calls and contacts and preparing for the next day and hoping that this child, you know, you've reached this child today, or maybe, Johnny understands his math a little bit better today, or they know their vowel sounds today more than they did yesterday.
Those are kind of important
They were
concepts.
very important
Everything else.
concepts in the second grade.
I remember when my mother was teaching that we were because she worked so many hours that we were actually jealous that we at some point we didn't even want to hear the names of her students. I mean, that's typical kids, I suppose, but she was so dedicated. She was a good mom too, by the way, but you know what I'm saying. I know it requires a lot of time. Now let's do some facts and figures here, but not bombard people with too many hundreds of them.
Sure.
But what is the average starting salary for a public school teacher in Nebraska?
The average starting salary is about $21,900, and we did a survey on the net with job placement. A police academy cadet or a correctional officer who comes straight out of high school with a GED degree can start at almost the same or more than a beginning teacher in Nebraska who's got 4 to 5 years of college experience. A Schwann's truck driver who delivers ice cream on a route can start at $26,000 in Nebraska. And this past week I was in Ogallala talking to a group of about 65 superintendents and board members. And we were talking about the teacher shortage, and one of the superintendents afterward came up to me and said, I wanted my son to go into teaching. The Coke guy was in today. While he was filling the machine, he said, we've got 4 vacancies on our routes, and the starting salary is $37,000.
It makes you think more than twice about that. What about the average teacher, the one in the middle of being a beginning teacher and...
Yeah, the average teacher salary in Nebraska is about $33,000, and it's almost $3,100 behind the average of the contiguous states, excluding South Dakota. California just recently passed a law that has a minimum starting salary of $32,000. That's almost the average salary for Nebraska teachers. The reason we're falling so much further behind is because other states have recognized that the shortage is there. As you said earlier, it's
they're
everywhere.
sucking them out of the pipeline.
And they're sucking them out of the pipeline. We've got 17 states that are now recruiting teachers in Nebraska at UNL when they have a teacher trade fair. And this past year down at UNL, 25% of the candidates who were graduating from Teachers College never even got into teaching because private sector, banking corporations and others came in and sucked them up and took them right out of the teacher pipeline.
So Ross Perot was wrong about where that great big sucking sound was going to come from.
Absolutely.
Now anyone, peel in. Andrea, I don't want you to sit there and wait because the more elder ones are speaking.
And we are definitely more elder.
We can't see her. You got to sit back a little bit there.
All right.
We want to see our teacher, sort of the stellar centerpiece of this. I have been reading kind of with awe, not necessarily a positive awe, but I've been reading with awe the letters to the editor. Here we have a bill or several ideas being tossed around in the Education Committee about how we could bring that up over a period of years. And we'll get to, I don't know exactly where it stands right now, but we'll get to that in a second. But the whole issue is there, and it's right out in front for taxpayers, legislators to deal with. And you get some sympathy in some of the letters, but it seems an awful lot of the letters are not real sympathetic with what a teacher does. Everything from, they get a couple months off a year. I mean, when you read these, Andrea, what fallacies are you seeing?
I think people believe that I come in at, say in the Omaha Public Schools at 8:30, and that at 4 o'clock when I walk out the door, those are my duty hours, 8:30 to 4, then I'm done. They don't understand exactly what my day consists of. I mean, I have students, who are, on the top end, and I have students that are on the lower end. And not only am I working during the day with each one of those to try to make a connection with them and to try to give each child what they need, but then I also, even if I'm done at 4 o'clock, I may have a committee meeting to go to. That may be something, you know, on professional development so I can get some new ideas on how to teach this math concept or how to teach this reading concept, or it may just be something to benefit my students in a different way. My job does not end at 4 o'clock, and you know, as far as having 3 months off in the summer, I don't just unfortunately get to go to the pool.
Well, it's becoming less and less. We have that
Right,
idea
right.
that it's 3 months, and you've got, you know, after the kids are out, you're there for at least a week or two, and then you're starting a couple weeks early. So it's really 2 months maybe, and that's assuming you're not working on an advanced degree, which is
Exactly.
one of the ways to move up in the field. I mean, there are
Exactly.
limited numbers of ways to move up in the teaching field, but when you read letters, how do you react? Obviously, you're a patient person, or you wouldn't be teaching second grade.
Well, it's frustrating because I feel like I have one of the most important jobs in America to teach our children. I mean, I think it's one of the most important jobs, and I don't know that people necessarily, some people don't understand that how important it is and, you know, what I'm doing every day. And the fact that people don't necessarily value it, because if we valued it more, I think we wouldn't be sitting here discussing how to raise teacher salaries. So,
Let me add to Andrea's comment and suggest to you that what we try to do at this institution in the teacher training is to point out to our teachers the other side of it. So I take the adversarial role of those people writing in saying, oh, they work 180 days, they work 6 hours a day, etc., and try to tell our pre-service teachers to focus on some of the actual things you do. And let me just give you an analogy. As Andrea talks about starting school, when that bell rings and those youngsters are there, compare that role once that bell rings to any other job, you know, the 33,000, the 37,000, the 39,000. Once those youngsters are there, there's 20 some odd youngsters there, and they're there the whole time. There are no breaks. You go until the end of the day. And I suggest to you what teachers do is they do another 4 or 5 hour day and accomplish those things that most people do on the job.
And most of them are there an hour before.
Absolutely, but they're doing things prior and post. Typically, as I say, what other people do on the job. When a truck driver gets training to drive the truck or sell the commodities, he or she is trained during that work hour day. Teachers go beyond for workshops. They go beyond for in-service. They go to universities like this to get remuneration above and beyond the basic entry salaries. And if they don't do that, you want to talk about dastardly salaries. Look at those people who can't afford to go on beyond the bachelor's degree and see how they suffer. So a person spends 3 years getting a master's degree, 36 hours of graduate school. So that's, again, talk about that in the context of a day, 8 hours of school and then 3 years of school after school, and they give them $2,200 to $2,600 more for doing that into their salary. And then you go beyond that, it's 15 hours above, and they're spending money to get to school, they're spending time to get there, and they're giving another pittance of $500 or $600, where these other people are sitting there and getting those types of increases but doing nothing.
Yeah.
You wouldn't say if you spent all the time getting an MBA, you wouldn't settle for that much more a year.
You wouldn't go. I mean,
Yeah.
the cost accounting says you wouldn't do it. But teachers, and many people don't know this, are obliged. Professional growth is a requirement. And I'm not saying you have to do college coursework. You have to do certain things in each school district in this state, if you're a public school teacher, to show that you're moving and not stagnant in terms of what's
Well, when
going
you're stagnant, you're behind.
Right.
in
well,
this
and
business.
also
And
to
the
keep your
main-
certification
right,
up, you have to do
exactly.
so many hours.
Right. We're not saying that other people don't work hard, okay? Teachers probably don't work any harder than a lot of other professionals, okay? But when you have a BA or an MA and your professional salary falls at the lower tier of all professional salaries, you simply can't expect people to stay in the profession. We not only have a short supply coming in because people are simply not choosing teaching and because they can get higher salaries in the private sector, but we have many, many classroom teachers who teach for about 7 or 8 years. They earn their master's degree. They discover they're at the top of the salary schedule, that the financial growth for them and their family is very, very limited, and at that point they start making some hard choices. My own personal situation is that my mother was a classroom teacher. I have 2 brothers and myself who were classroom teachers, and my sister. Both of my brothers left teaching at about 7 or 8 years, and went into the Prudential life insurance business and
I don't think you need to go much farther than that one.
and tripled their salary in the first or second year. And that's what is going on. We're not only losing people at the front end because they're going into the private sector, we're losing them in the middle of their careers because they simply take a look and say, hey, I want my kids to go to college, I want to have the resources that other people have, and I'm simply not going to continue to teach. There are other opportunities out there.
The thing that kills me the most, and I'm not trying to be an advocate for your position necessarily, but the thing that absolutely slays me is the retort, they don't have to be teachers. Well, you could say that about any profession, but what if they all said, you're right?
And Carol, what I told Artis Bolke at the legislative hearing, I used the old oil filter slogan, they're going to have to pay them now or we're all going to pay later because people aren't going to be there to teach the kids. And I suggest that when they say they don't have to be there, those who are suggesting how lily white in terms of the opportunities for these teachers are in terms of time off and holidays and snow days, why don't they come in? Because we have I have a program out here for any of them with baccalaureate degrees. If they think it's such a great profession and it's so easy, when they complain, I think I want in that same complaint for them to show up at my door and we'll give them the training.
Yeah, you've got the
and put 'em in
BA
there.
degree. We can
We'll
add on.
We'll fix you right up. We'll put them right in the classroom and see how much they enjoy the time and the demand. And think about it again in the context. Andrea is responsible to 20 some odd youngsters, double that in terms of parents. She's got a building principal, she's got school board, she's got a teacher organization, and then she's got the general community saying, oh, teachers don't do this. She's responsible and having to deal with all of those pressures of you got to do more of this. The legislature's getting in the act and saying, okay, Andrea, now in addition to doing what you do in the curriculum, we want you to do this and this and this. There's all kinds of external forces playing on these
And
teachers.
all the things coming down the pipeline about teachers, not certification is the right word, but testing procedures. I mean, that's always
Sure.
kind of out there. And then the more requirements on testing of students to make sure that we're getting a uniform learning.
Right now, the
that's-
State Department has adopted a series of academic curriculum standards for each of the school districts across the state. What they haven't done is develop the assessment instruments. And the way that the department is going to create that assessment or accountability program is for teachers to create teacher-made tests in each of the buildings around each of those standards. That's all going to be an additional responsibility the classroom teachers across the state are going to have to deal with. We rank 5th in the nation in terms of academic achievement because we have a quality teacher corps. But half of those folks are going to retire in the next 7 to 10 years. We're going to need 10,000 new teachers during that time frame. On the national level, 2.2 million new teachers.
Oh, the statistics I was reading are staggering. As I said, every state in the union is worried spitless. And Massachusetts right now, it has got a bill to do the retirement thing. Okay, so if you debunk the fact that they're tied, they still are worried about, passing that because they know that they're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, because teachers are going to look at comparable terms and conditions of employment. Salary is one of those things. The kind of a health care package you have is another. The kind of retirement program that's available to you is another. And as you take a look at those things, if other states have much better programs, then that's where you're going to go. We also have an internal problem. We talked about an average starting salary of about $21,900 in Nebraska. We still have teachers out there earning $12,000 in some of those Class 1 school districts. And we have one school district in the state of Nebraska this year that has a starting salary of $18,500. And so what's happened historically in the state of Nebraska is that the young teachers come out of college, they get a job in a smaller D school in a more rural area. As soon as they earn a few additional college hours, work on their master's degree, they boogie right on up into the A and B schools. And so as the shortage becomes more severe, and it's already here, those schools are going to have the biggest problems trying to attract and retain quality teachers.
And while cities have their own problems in terms of, areas of cities, urban areas like where Druid Hill is, where you really sometimes have a more at-risk category. You have just the lack of educational opportunities in general outside of the public school system. You can end up with educational deserts, and we're already worried about small towns closing down and things like that.
And then you don't have advanced math courses. You don't have advanced physics or chemistry. If
So the really
if you do
bright
have,
kids don't have an equal opportunity to get in the best schools.
absolutely, and it becomes a severe problem in terms of educational opportunity and equity for kids, because all the research says the single most important ingredient in education outside the home and the education of the mother in the family is the quality of the teacher in the classroom. If you want to improve education and maintain high student achievement, you have to put a quality teacher in that classroom, and if you don't have one there, the academic achievement is going to fall. Nebraskans demand a quality education.
Oh, they should. Parents sure do. I'm one of them. I mean, I'm a parent, and I demand certain things.
I'm absolutely certain, Carol, that you have people watching this program that are going, oh yeah, you have 3 teachers or people who were teachers out there talking about teacher salaries. Sure, they're going to, but there really are no shortages. Let me give you, to me, the single most blatant evidence of the fact that shortage is here. In the metro area, when I came here from the east, I was amazed. I was absolutely astonished at the fact that there was kind of an unwritten peace agreement between school districts that they didn't come in and
raid each other.
Bets are off. The bets are off across the city.
West Side School's just up the ante again.
Across the city.
And not that their
should
teachers
have.
didn't deserve it.
And the Omaha Public Schools did with the substitute pay. I mean, it's the notion of, again, and I keep using it, but it's a notion of doing something about it now, or you're going to let it get so bad that you won't be able to do the correction, and I think that's what we're about.
Okay, let's boogie right to down to Lincoln right now.
Okay.
You presented a plan that was a price tag of what, 70?
The original goal that we wanted Nebraskans to understand was that if we wanted to be at the national average,
Just in the middle.
and Tom Osborne and Nebraska Huskers would never settle for that, but if we just wanted to be average, we were $8,000 behind the average teacher salary in the United States here in Nebraska.
Okay, so if you were to get that far,
that
it
would
would
have
take
cost $70 million.
over a...
Well, it would have cost $70 million, and then another 70 on top of that, and another 70 on top of that.
3 years.
So by the time you got there, we were looking at $420 million. And we also understand political reality, but we wanted to make sure that people understood just how far behind we are. So what Senator Boelke did was she scaled back that original bill, and basically the target now is to get to the average of the region in 3 years, and that means we need to pick up about $3,100 per teacher to reach that regional average, and that will cost roughly $40 million this year and another $30 million the following year.
Okay, I'm told something will come out of committee. I mean, it's percolating now. Any guesses?
Well, we're hoping, first of all, we know that 1399 will come out. It's a bill that calls for a study of this issue, and we supported that because obviously we need to take a look at all the issues, and this has to be a long-term solution. It can't be a Band-Aid. It's got to be sustainable over time. But in the meantime, the cost of catching up becomes greater for every year that you wait. And so what we're hoping is that the legislature will also report out LB 1397. And what it does is it provides financial incentives to school districts that hire and retain better qualified, more academically achieved and experienced teachers.
Sort of a challenge money, which some states are talking about.
Exactly.
I was looking at this one thing from Maryland, and they're talking about using their tobacco money. The issue is, and people can debate the whole tax issue. We're overtaxed. We have limited breadth in what we can tax. We don't have we have tourism, but not like Florida, and we don't have mountains, and we don't have the big draw, and we don't have tons, huge amounts of industry, and I mean, you can go on and on and on and on.
Sure.
However, the thing that we do have right now is a decent economy. And people are raising the issue of if we don't do it now, not only will we lose the teachers that you're talking about, but what if we do? I mean, we may have, we might have a drought.
Right.
I mean, they're even bandying that awful word around now.
Right.
Do you think the senators have the political will to do something this year besides study?
I think they do. I think they do. I think they understand that they need to keep faith with those 20-some thousand teachers out there that are in our classrooms.
Now, you represent 25,000 alone in the Nebraska State Education
Yeah.
Association.
Yeah.
Are you getting the teachers in the classrooms in the universities that you used to get? The would-be teachers?
Our enrollment is not going down at the level that the key areas. Our entire secondary ed enrollment is just dropping off, and we're doing specific studies now to show that, and it's happening not just at UNO, across the board. Our enrollment in secondary ed programs is just gone, and again, it's the notion of drawing away. Our elementary enrollment is holding, but again, in terms of the numbers that Jim gave you, the misleading characteristic of that is that we graduate X number of people per year, but not all of those have any intention of teaching right away. They're in many cases, they were traditional students coming out of a 4-year high school degree. They finished 4 years, and they're in that 4 years here. They've married, they're going to start families, etc.
And they've rethought the process.
Rethought the notion of either substituting and doing part-time. So you can't say, I've seen arguments where they say, oh, look, we can go down to the State Department, so you're producing, in the 17 teacher training institutions, you're producing X number of teachers, and you need Y, and
they'll plug X, Y, Z into all
it
these
fits.
places.
It's
Yeah.
not that easy.
Yeah. It doesn't work.
Well, we just have, believe it or not, we only have a couple of minutes left, and really kind of wanted to just bring people up to speed that maybe didn't have more than a 30-second soundbite on the news. But what are your words to the legislature? We'll go down the row, start with you, Dr. John, as they bring this to fruition, whatever this birthing that they're going to do, and this probably next week.
Well, I think there's two things I would say. One, they can study the issue, but if they wait, they're going to pay more than they would do something now. And the second thing I'd say, simply because I've visited as in-depth with her as I can, listen to Senator Boelke, because she's got the head for this issue, and she knows more about it than anyone else in their group.
One thought from you, Andrea?
Well, I would just say that, I agree with Dr. John, if we don't do something now, we're going to pay later. We are in the classrooms preparing our youngsters for the future, and this is what our future will hold if we lose our teachers.
You get the last word, about 10 seconds there.
Do it now. Begin now.
Do it now.
Study, fine, but we got to begin now. It's like the old adage, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, and you got to start now.
And if they have questions, they can call the NSC in Lincoln.
Absolutely.
I want to thank you so much. It is an important issue, folks. Get educated. Talk amongst yourselves. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Consider This with Carol Schrader is made possible with support from Bass & Associates and First Data Resources.